Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we turn to talking about one of the worst and most evil ideologies of the entire world history. I am of course talking about communism. That's right. Communism has been coming up a lot on the internet lately, mostly because the left has been getting more and more woke and going further and further to the far left. Yeah, communism is like far left, past liberals, past socialists, like way over there on the other side. And that's where a lot of people have been leading in current events. That's right. There's a lot of people talking about communism more, people bringing it up. There's literal communists on YouTube and Twitch, like talking about this really, really extreme ideology that's killed many, many people. Like communism kills, that's a real thing. They've had a very, very bad track record with this sort of experiment. And their kind of go-to defense is always, oh, communism has never been really enacted. They never really enacted actual communism, but we all know they've tried. We all know they've failed. We all know it's been kind of one of the biggest stains on world history. People like Russia, China, communism was a big part of the Vietnam War as well as it was in Korea and other places. Like communism has been a plague on the world. Many people have died due to it. Pol Pot, Mao has killed many. There's been lots of bad things with like Stalin, Lenin. These terrible, terrible leaders have used communism as their kind of catalyst to get in charge, to become authoritarians, to dictate these big countries and cause many, many people to die. So that's why I think it's very interesting, very, very troubling to see it pop up over and over again. Specifically, one place that's been popping it up like over and over, like really trying to make it a thing is Teen Vogue. Teen Vogue is a website and formerly a magazine, and it's supposed to be aimed at teens. It's for teens. It's like they do that. So they're trying to aim at young people and they're pushing communism on them. It's pretty messed up, but it's not to be surprising from Teen Vogue. We've covered them multiple times. They made many left-wing woke videos before. So this is what we're covering today. We're going to get more into it. We're going to talk about the story and the article soon. But first, let's take a quick moment to check out our sponsor. With election season in full swing, I've got a very, very interesting and cool special offer just for you guys, the NoBS audience. Today, I'm going to give you guys a chance to buy the 2020 Battle for the White House chess set. That's right, for less than $40, you can own a piece of history with this limited edition chess set that features Donald Trump himself. That's right, President Donald Trump is one of the king pieces, as is the Democratic nominee, which will obviously be former Vice President Joe Biden. Looks like we got Richard Cheney, Kevin McCarthy, Brett Kavanaugh, Michael Pence, Donald Trump on the right side. So if you think you're smart and cool enough to own this one, click the link below this video. Thanks for your time. Enjoy the new chess set if you order it. And now back to the show. Great. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk more about Teen Vogue. I first heard about this on a tweet. It says, "Welcome to Marx." And there's a picture of Karl Marx. He, of course, created communism, wrote some of the beginning books about it. Lots of these people look up to him on the left. That's why we hear of terms like Marxist or Marxism. And that's really what's being pushed by a lot of leftists these days. They use the kind of teachings of Karl Marx. He was obsessed with race too. He talked about how using people's identities and calling them racist is effective ways to manipulate people and stuff like that. So this is all coming from the top down, and it's infiltrating our system in America. Like even people like BLM, they've openly admitted to being Marxist because they really don't see the problem with communism. They think it's a good thing. They want our country to completely change our system. They hate capitalism. They hate wealth aggregation. They hate people that are free to do what they want. No, they want communism. They want more control. They want big brother government. And that's why places like Teen Vogue are pushing this and trying to get this onto teenagers. And that's why we're also getting really bad reactions. Like, as you could see, the tweet reactions to this are pretty bad. Someone says, uh-oh, this is going to get controversy again. Then another one says, delete this. Ali says, Marxism would literally vouch your entire issue pointless because none of your audience would be able to purchase anything in it, let alone the magazine itself. That's right. People in communist societies, they don't have wealth. Everything is kind of dictated by the government. The government controls all the means of production and everything. Like you just kind of work for the government. They put you in a spot and you don't get paid like in cash. They just give you a place to live. They hand out food. Like you don't really have a way to gain your own wealth. Like everyone just works in this system. And that actually can work in smaller situations. Like there's been a lot of successful communes is what they call them. Communes are like little mini groups of people who gather and live out on their own in a farm or something usually. And there could be like 10 people, 20 people, could be like 100 people. But in that kind of small number, it can actually work. But once it gets bigger, once you get to like, say, a whole country with millions of people, it's just a total mess and it becomes really, really bogged down and really, really like authoritarian. They have to use extreme measures to defend a system like this that most people don't want. So that's why a lot of people complain about it. And that's why we're talking about it today. I really wanted to cover this and show you the details and how this is getting used to spread this misinformation. They're using this to kind of indoctrinate teenagers. And yeah, it's being done on the internet openly, and they just can't even realize how bad it looks. So with that said, let's read on into this article. It's called, "Who is Karl Marx? Meet the Anti-Capitalist Scholar. The communist scholar's ideas are more prevalent than you might realize." So obviously this is pro him. This is pro Karl Marx. This is also an article from 2 years ago, apparently. I thought it looked familiar, but I think that's because, Teen Vogue reposts this all the time. They love pushing this Karl Marx stuff, and they really ignore all the bad things that have come from it. So with that said, let me close these ads and get into the article more. It says, "You may have come across communist memes on social media. The man, the meme, the legend behind this trend is Karl Marx, who developed the theory of communism, which advocates for workers' control of their labor instead of their bosses. The political philosopher turned 200 years old on May 5th, but his ideas can still teach us about the past and present. The famed German co-authored the Communist Manifesto with fellow scholar Friedrich Engels in 1848, a piece of writing that makes the case for a political theory of socialism, where the community rather than rich people have ownership and control over their labor, which later inspired millions of people to resist oppressive political leaders and spark political revolutions all over the world. Although Marx was raised in a middle-class family, he later became a scholar who struggled to make ends meet, a working-class man, he thought, who could take part in a political revolution." So a little bit misinformation, misleading stuff here already. I mean, first of all, he tries to act like it was this heroic thing, like communism sparked revolutions around the world, but those did not end well. Like nothing good has come from communism. This is like a bad, misleading take on it. I mean, we're talking about Russia, like the former USSR was communist for a couple generations, but they eventually collapsed. China is a big example. They might be considered successful by some, but good luck trying to live in China. I mean, they don't have any freedom there. The government is super strict. It's turned into this whole dictatorship, this like military sort of Gestapo in China. Like you can't even have free press there. People can't even use the internet. Like it's a really, really dark place that's kind of like backwards in a lot of ways. Sure, they have a lot of business and they produce some products and make money across the globe. Like no one's denying that, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily a good country and they're successful and they're treating their people right. Like say what you want about America. People complain about so-called racism here, but the racism and the offensive government is 100 times worse in a place like China. So saying they sparked these revolutions like it was a good thing, like, yeah, sometimes they probably toppled some bad leaders, but they just put more bad leaders in their place, like probably worse ones in a lot of cases. The Communist Manifesto is most usually the work of Marx taught in schools, and he is one of the most assigned economists in United States college classes. Many may not know that he also studied law in university. He authored 3 volumes of Das Kapital, which outlined the fundamentals of Marxist theory of capitalism and also organized workers through the International Working Men's Association, otherwise known as the First International. He was an editor of a newspaper that was eventually censored by the Prussian government for speaking out against censorship and challenging the government. His writings have inspired social movements in Soviet Russia, China, Cuba, Argentina, Ghana, Burkina Faso, and more. Many political writers and artists like Angelo Davis, Frida Kahlo, Malcolm X, Claudia Jones, Helen Keller, and Walter Rodney integrated Marxist theory into their work decades after his death. So right now, what I'm thinking is, first of all, Marx started off as a rich guy. He tried to come up with this idea, and they say he eventually struggled for ends meet, but he was not as broke and as poor as they claim. That's just them trying to justify him coming up with this Marxism stuff that's supposed to be from the people, but he was really like a rich guy. So it's really kind of like a rewrite there. And then the other thing here is, I mean, these are not good examples. Like I already went over some of these. These are the examples they give. It's like, do you really want to model your country more like China, Russia, Cuba, Argentina, Ghana, and Burkina Faso? Like these are not prominent examples. Like, these are not the best countries in the world. Like, the only one that even competes is, again, like a China or Russia is even rather competitive, but their economy is like the size of one US state. I think they're comparable to Texas. China, on the other hand, they compare pretty well to America, even though they have a lot more people, like 3 times as many people. They have over 1 billion there, but they have a very big industry. But that's not necessarily the only sign of progress and of a good nation. So if you really want to be more like Cuba and Ghana and Burkina Faso, like, go ahead and try communism, like, go for it. But if you want to be cool and be a place that people actually want to live and be beautiful and free and safe, like, that's why you want to be more like capitalist countries, Western nations like America, Britain, Canada, these other kinds of European descendant former colonies. I mean, it doesn't even have to be that. There's democracies all over the place now, even in places in other continents. But the point is, these are not countries that you should be looking up to. Communism has failed a lot of people, and they're just trying to kind of rewrite this and make it look better than it actually is. So how can teens learn the legacy of Marx's ideas and how they're relevant to current political climate? Teen Vogue chatted with 2 educators about how they apply these concepts to current events in the classroom. Public high school teacher Mark Berndt teaches excerpts from the Communist Manifesto alongside curriculum about the Industrial Revolution in his English class. He uses The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, a text published in 1906 that revealed the exploitative workplace conditions of the meat industry in Chicago and other industrialized cities many immigrants were subject to in the late 19th century, to understand what it's like to work in a factory a little more than 100 years ago. So they're talking about books and stuff that people teach in high school. And yeah, you can obviously identify they teach the Communist Manifesto in schools, but I always saw it as more of like a cautionary tale. It's like, yeah, we don't want to forget our past. We don't want to act like communism never happened. Like, when we learned communism in school, it was like, yeah, watch out for this. Be careful. This is Karl Marx's book that ruined a lot of countries and had these crazy ideas in it. And I think what Teen Vogue's trying to do is flip the script and make it seem more sympathetic, try to act like communism is a good thing, try to model off of these terrible countries that have failed or are very, very authoritarian and awful and lacking freedom and nice places to live. So that's the way I see it. I think this is like a rewrite. And obviously Teen Vogue is aiming this at teens. I mean, that's already apparent, but they say here straight up, how can teens learn the legacy of Marx's ideas? And I'm not saying, yeah, you have to be overly negative. Just be a little cautionary. This is like way too positive, and they're trying to push it onto kids. And that's really the most troubling thing. Like, they're trying to push communism and politics onto young kids to get them early on. That way they can get their votes and possibly exploit them for their entire lives. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Also, hit that like button if you enjoyed what you saw. Subscribe if you're new, and hit the bell for notifications. Until next time, have a great day.